Hey guys, welcome back to How to Roll Dice. I'm Josh, and today we're going to be reviewing this game here, Rising Sun, published by Cool Mini or Not. Game's from 2018, and it is a spectacular game for numerous reasons. Right off the bat, the first thing I want to say is if you are into modeling or miniatures, whether it be painting them or just collecting them, this game is well worth its value right off the bat, whether or not you actually ever even play the game. The game itself, the core box set, which is relatively large, as you saw, comes with 58 miniatures. I'll give you a quick example of some of them here that I have out on the table. This is actually the Turtle Clan and a couple of the monsters that come with the game, and we'll get into that when we get into how the game works. But as you can see, this is one of the Turtle Clan, Shinto, and hopefully you can get a good view on him right there. This is a highly detailed, or relatively highly detailed resin model. And I would say it's below Games Workshop, but above something like a Bones Mini, like a cheap D&D miniature. And I'll give you another quick example here. This is the Daimyo for the same Turtle Clan. And you can see there's quite a bit of detail and pretty quality sculpting work going into these models. They look to be about 30mm base models. These are the monsters. These are not faction specific or clan specific. But they are involved in every game, and you get 8 of these guys. These are on either 50mm or 40mm bases, I believe. And hopefully you can get a good view of that there. I mean, these guys are even better quality. I only took out a few of them, but I honestly couldn't decide which to show you because they're all so good. And these are all unpainted. The different clans are different colors of resin, but you could obviously prime them and paint them. You would just want to make sure that their color schemes do contain their core color, because that has to do with the way that the game is played. So Turtle Clan is green. You want to keep them, you want them to have some green on them once you paint them, or paint their bases green or something like that. But the models are spectacular. There are 58 models. The current MSRP of the game is $100, and that's from the publisher's website. So you're paying less than $2 a model for models that I would say, this guy you would probably end up paying $20, $25 for at least, if this was a tabletop miniatures model, for like a game like War Machine or like Warhammer 40K. And I would say like a unit of these guys, probably somewhere between $30 and $50, depending on how many you're going to get. And the whole box, 58 models, 5 different factions, 8 different monsters, costs $100. That alone is a spectacular deal, and when we opened this game up for the first time, we could not believe the number of miniatures and the quality of the sculpts that the game came with. So I'm going to start by saying that right there. If you're into miniatures, if you're into models, you like painting, you like collecting, pick this game up. You don't even have to play it. It's worth it right there. However, getting into the game, the rest of the game as well is spectacular, both the gameplay and the construction of it. You guys can't even see, I don't think, the whole board that I have laid out in front of me, but this is sort of a traditional style era map for Japan. You probably can't read it, but there's the different regions of Japan on here. Kansai, Shikoku, Kyushu, Edo, Oshu, Hokkaido. It does look a little different because I believe normally we view it sort of long ways and this is sideways so that it fits onto the board, or maybe that's how it was looked at traditionally. But that is what the actual board itself is. It's a map of Japan broken down into the different regions. It's also got shipping routes on it, and it's got some different token tracking areas around it. You've got victory points going around the outside here. You've got spaces for your, I believe they're lucky gods. They might not be gods. Kamis up here, kami shrines. You've got your different political mandate sections here. We'll get into that. You've got an honor tracker bar over here for tracking the honor of the different clans. That has to do with breaking ties in game, because ties can sort of crop up here and there throughout the game. You've got different score conditions for the different districts, and you've got a sort of wartime tracker over here. It seems very crunchy. It seems very complex. And I think it's actually scored about a 3.5 out of 5 as far as complexity goes. Once you get into the game and you sort of learn the uniquenesses of it, it's really not that complicated. So the setup of the game is pretty straightforward. Everybody's going to pick a clan. The different clans have slightly different abilities, but for the most part, they all function the same. When you pick your clan, you're going to take one of these. This is a clan screen, and it is a screen specifically for wartime and the way that war works, because it has to do with sort of hiding your plans until you and your opponent are ready to fight, and then you both reveal at the same time by dropping down your screens and revealing what you plan to do. So it's a screen for that purpose, because you can set it up like this and you can hide specifically your playboard behind it. This is the war side. This is the sort of political mandate side. And so during war, you would actually have that screen you'd have that board tucked behind your screen so that your opponent can't see it, and you'd be doing stuff back there. We'll get into that when we get into combat. But yeah, so this is your clan screen. There are 5 different clans, like I mentioned. They are all color-coded. The one or the few things that are different on them, mostly covered on this side, they have a starting honor. That's where they start on the honor track over here, which is, like I said, how you break ties. The more honorable the tie will go in your favor. The more honorable the clan, the tie will go in their favor, I should say. You've got your starting region, which is both color-coded and laid out on the map here in the corner. You've got your seasonal income up here in the upper right. And that is, I want to say that ranges from 4 to 7, or maybe 3 to 7. That's how much you get at the beginning of every season to work with for that season financially. There are 4 seasons to the game, though the 4th season isn't really a season. The game kind of just ends in the 4th season. So you have spring, summer, fall, and then the game ends in winter. And then the last difference is that every clan has a special. So the Turtle Clan special is called Shell of the Eternal. Your strongholds, which are sort of your main bases, your fortresses, your castles, count as one force and can move as if they were a figure. So you can see that written right here. So basically what that means is that for the Turtle Clan, and I can kind of show you, this is what a normal stronghold token looks like. Looks like a traditional Japanese temple, shrine, something like that. This is what the Turtle Clan Stronghold token looks like. And you can see that it's the Stronghold symbol, but on the back of a giant turtle. That is because their turtles are actually giant mystical turtles that can crawl around the entire continent. And so their strongholds literally move. That's sort of their special. And also their strongholds basically count as a fighter when wartime comes. So that's pretty unique for them. The other clans have equally unique and sort of effective abilities. It's not like they're overpowered. I feel like every clan's different special ability is pretty effective throughout the course of the game. No one necessarily more than the other. So everybody's going to pick a faction. You're going to randomize 4 kami shrines. There are, I believe, 7 of those. Yep, 7 kami shrines. They all have special abilities that can be triggered if you send priests, known as Shinto, to the kami shrines to pray. That happens multiple times throughout a season. Both the ability to send the Shinto to the shrines as well as the actual praying that occurs to trigger the ability from the shrine. And like I said, each one of those is different. You're going to randomly pull 4 of those and put them on the kami spaces back here, face up, so that everybody can see them. You're going to shuffle the political mandate cards. Political mandate cards are basically what happens on each player's turn. So on the back, they all have the same back. And on the front, there are 5 different options, or sort of 5 different effects that they can have. You've got Betrayal, you've got Recruit, you've got Marshal, you've got Harvest, and you've got Train. And so what's going to happen after you shuffle those is you're going to put the stack face down, and that is going to be sort of, it's partially random, but it's not entirely random. We'll get to that in a second. And then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to hand out everybody's sort of starting faction, what they have on the board to begin with. So it's going to be your daimyo, which has a black base, and that is your leader. And it is going to be 1 bushi, which are your standard warrior types. They have no disc base. You can see the Shinto actually have a white disc base, and that's true for all of the factions. And then also I should mention there are additional bases that come with the game in every faction color for the 2 different size monsters, because once you summon a monster, it is part of your faction. So here's the one for the larger monsters, here's the one for the smaller monsters. I say smaller, but I should say these are the smaller monsters. There are bigger monsters, and they are awesome. And I should also mention there are 3 expansions to this game so far that add tons more models. You can actually play with gods, you can play with the moon and sun clans, which come into effect. You've got sort of like additional monsters that come out. So all kinds of stuff going on there, but I'm not going to get into those in this review. So anywho, you're going to get your starting daimyo, your leader. You're going to get your starting bushi, which is your 1 warrior, and you're going to get your starting shrine. So for Turtle Clan, it would be this guy right here, and you put that on your starting, you put all of those on your starting location, which for Turtles is Kyoto. So you get your 1 daimyo, you got your stronghold, and you got your bushi. Everybody's going to do that for the factions that they chose. Then you're going to sort of step into the game with the seasonal setup process. You're going to do the randomization of the political mandates. You're going to randomly pull out some war tokens. The war tokens are broken down by season, so you want to pull out all the ones that have the number 1 on the back of them. That's these guys right here. And there's going to be one token for each province. You shuffle the season 1 tokens, and then you flip them over one at a time, and you place them over here on the side on sort of the war tracker chart, which is numbered 1 through 8. However, depending on the size of your game, you're not going to use that many war tokens. It's actually marked on the board. If you have a 3-player game, you're only going to do the first 5. If you have a 4-player game, you do the 6th. If you have a 5-player game, you do the 7th. And if you have a 6-player game, you do all 8. So the ones you don't use, you put back in the box. That means that there are going to be, since what these do is determine the order in which, during wartime, the different regions go to war. That means that in a 3-player game, for example, you're only going to be placing 5 tokens. That means the remaining 3 that go back into the box for that season will not go to war that season. Even if there are warring factions, so say 3 different factions or 2 different factions in the same region, if that region is not on the war tracker, that region will not go to war that season. It sort of becomes a safe haven. And so you have to factor that in when you're playing. Once you've got those down, there are actually additional numbered markers, these guys right here, 1 through 8, that can be placed adjacent to the different regions so that you can sort of have a at-a-glance view to remind you of which regions are going to go to war and in which order while you're moving your pieces around on the board, so you can keep track of sort of how things are going to go down when you get to the war phase. Once you place those and you place the corresponding tokens out onto the region, I just have the rule book here in front of me so I can go through it, because this is, like I said, it's a dense game, but once you get into it and you play it a few times, it's really not that bad. You're going to take the current season cards and you're going to set them beside the board. Season cards are, again, specific to the season, and they sort of escalate as the game goes forward. So the spring season cards aren't that intense. They're basically specials, abilities, modifiers that you can add to your faction or use to summon monsters or do different things to the game to sort of briefly manipulate it. In the spring, they're not that intense. In the summer, they're a little bit more intense. And in the fall, they're huge bonuses that affect not only the current game state, but also your end of game victory points. The way the game works for sort of randomizing those is that you've got the base season cards, one for spring, one for fall, and one for winter. And then you've got additional cards that you can blend into those seasons with sort of different flavors to them, and they've got symbols on them to denote what they are. So you can see here, these 3 have a gate symbol in the corner, or a shrine symbol. These 3 have these, not 3, but these ones here, have a cavalry or a rider, horseman symbol. And you can see these are all yellow, these are all marked for summer. These 3 have a teapot or a kettle in the corner. So you would take the base season cards and you would add in one additional sort of lump of cards. You would add in all of the tea kettles, or you would add in all of the gates or all of the cavalry, and that would modify what cards are available throughout the season. So that sort of is a way to keep the game fluid and different every time you play it. And I believe the expansions also come with more season cards that you can work in. Season cards have different effects. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll just give you a quick example if I can find spring really quickly, just so you guys have an idea of kind of what they do. And they're also color-coded. The game is very well color-coded, so you can sort of get things at a glance. So here's a blue card, Benevolence. Blue cards are Virtue. You can see that right there. That's the name. It's got Virtue written on the side. This card costs 1, I believe they're called Keshu or Cheshu. That's the name of the coins, money in the game. These guys right here. They are plastic, though they sound metal, which I think is cool. So Benevolence says, when you spend any money, you may give 1 money spent to another player. If you do, you gain 1 honor on the honor track and 2 VP. So of the money you spend, once you have this card in play, and once you buy a card, it goes right into play. Of the money you spend on any other season card once this is in play for the rest of the game, you may take 1 of those coins and, instead of putting it in the bank with the rest of the money spent, give it to any player. And if you do that, because essentially you're being a nice guy, Benevolence, you go up 2 on the victory point track and 1 space on the honor track, which is convenient because it also bumps anybody that you move above down. It's sort of a linear up and down. There's only 1 row of players. So that's an example of a blue card. A Virtue card. Enchantment is a green card. Path of the Kennen, or Kanan. I'm probably terrible at reading these. It's a Bushi upgrade, so it's going to affect your standard warriors. And it says, after you summon, which is one of the types of cards that you can, or one of the types of political mandates that you can use, it's to put new models onto the table. After you summon, you may place an extra bushi, so an extra warrior, or on any of your strongholds. So you start with one throughout the game, you can add more. So this basically lets you pump out guys quicker. That's an example of an enchantment card. Then you've got a monster card. These are brown. I'll show you one similar to the ones I have on the table, just so you can keep track. This is the Oni of Skulls. He costs 2 coin, and when you pay for him, this isn't him, but say this was him. When you pay for him, you immediately get to stick your faction base on him, or one of your faction bases, because you do get multiples. You can have multiple monsters out at the same time. And you stick him, just like you were summoning any regular model, onto any stronghold that you have. Now, it's a little more convenient when you're turtles, because your strongholds can move around, so you can sort of move your stronghold to where you want your guy to end up, and then summon, if it works out that way. It won't always. He also has the special ability, he's worth 3 force, which is 3 fighting force, in any province where you have the lowest honor. So if you were fighting, say for example, over here in Kansai, and you had him there versus, say, 2 bushi, normally monsters are worth 1, just like everything else. Monsters are worth 1, your daimyo is worth 1, Shinto are worth 1 if they're fighting and not at a shrine, and bushi are worth 1. So monsters, even though they seem huge and monstrous, they're actually only as good as bushi unless you meet the sort of like requirements for their specials. His special is if the armies, all of the armies, because it says you have to have the lowest in the province, so not just one other army, but if there are 2 other factions there, for example, 2 other clans, you have to be the lowest out of all of them. He's actually worth 3 instead of 1, so that's a big difference. Obviously, most of the time you're only going to be interacting against or fighting against one other player at a time, so you just have to make sure that you're lower on the honor track than them. If you're lowest on the honor track, then you don't have to worry about it. This guy's just always a 3. Now, obviously, that's a bad situation to be in if you run into any tiebreakers during the game, throughout the seasons, because you're automatically going to lose those. But if you're only worrying about this guy, then get yourself to the bottom of the honor track by whatever means necessary, and you're good to go. He'll always be worth 3. I'm not going to go through the rest of these, but there are other types of cards as well. Like I said, they start weaker in the spring, they get tougher or they get more effective in the summer, they get really effective in the fall. They actually start to affect like end game scoring and things like that. So those are season cards. Every season you're going to shuffle the season cards for that season, and you're going to lay them face up next to the board. That's sort of the marketplace, the cards that can be purchased if anybody plays the political mandate, which allows you to purchase new cards. I believe that's called training. We'll set this over here to the side. Hang in, we're almost there. So that is setting up the season cards. You give each player their seasonal income. That's going to be whatever's in coins written on their player mat. So for Turtle Clan, it is 6. They would get 6 coins. You do not carry over what you had from the previous season. So obviously we're talking about the first season right now, but if we were further into the game and we were starting, say, the 2nd or 3rd season, you do not get to carry over what you had from the previous season. All of that gets utilized or not utilized during the final phase or semi-final phase, which is the war phase. And then after that, anything that doesn't get used gets scrapped. So everybody sort of starts back at a base level. There is no hoarding throughout the game because that would tend to have one faction slowly pull away from the others. Even if you start to win a little bit, you just end up winning more because the way that war works in this game is it's driven by money. So if you win the first war and you end up with money, then you're going to likely win the second war and then win the third war, and you just keep diverging. It's kind of that monopoly effect. Once you start winning, you continue to win, and once you start losing, you continue to lose more and more aggressively. It's like exponential. So in this game, money resets every season. You kind of go back to a base clean slate. And then the last thing that you do before you get going, the seasonal setup phase, is return any hostages that were taken during the previous season. Obviously, in the first season, you're not going to do that. But if during the war phase you had taken any hostages, you return them, and from the common pile of money, you get paid 1 coin per hostage that you returned. It's sort of the state paying you for being a good war fighter and returning back the people that you had taken hostage. And then you actually get into the process of the season. The season itself is actually documented by these spaces here. The very first thing that happens is the tea ceremony. There is no tea ceremony the first season. Tea ceremony is basically, does anybody want to align with anybody else? Do 2 players want to join together? The reason you would do that is because when you play a political mandate card, which is the main chunk of the season, the player who's playing it gets sort of a bonus effect, and then every other player gets the regular effect of that political mandate. So say, for example, it was the training political mandate that allows you to purchase one of the seasonal cards. When you play that, everybody's going to get the ability to purchase, but the person who actually played it gets to purchase and I believe gets a discount on the purchase. So you get a benefit. The reason you would want to ally is because if you are allied, if you or the person you are allied with played the political mandate, you both get the bonus on top of the standard action that the political mandate allows. So it's good to be a team. However, there is no rule that says that you actually have to act friendly during or because you're in an alignment, because you're allied with another player. The rulebook actually many times over recommends betraying them, backstabbing them, paying people off just by literally giving them money to coerce them to do things that you want, as opposed to getting into an alliance with somebody. The game is very much driven by finances, and it's very much, hey, if you've got the coin to do it, why not try, just go for it and see what happens. There's no rules against bribery. There's no rules against paying people off or giving another player money so that they'll do what you want them to do. It's kind of free form. It can be very backstabby, though it hasn't been in my group. And I think that's because there's this whole honor system built into it, and it doesn't necessarily cause you to lose the game, but it almost just drives this sense of like, those things are morally bad, so I shouldn't do them. You kind of get that ingrained in your head, even if the rules don't say you should. And in fact, the rules say the direct opposite. They say, go ahead, bribe people, cheat, whatever. So you start with the tea ceremony. You do not do that on the first season. There are no alignments during the first season because that would sort of slant the game right off the bat. Then you move into these blank spaces here. These are for political mandates. Political mandates, like I said, are these cards here. You shuffle them up into a pile, you put them face down, you hand them to player one. Player one is going to pull the top 4 political mandates off the top of the deck and secretly look at them. So I pulled these guys here, and spread those out a little bit better, right? Color-coded, again, like I said. So you've got Recruit, that's to add models to the table. You've got Marshal, that is to move models around the table. You've got Harvest, that is to gain the benefit of the different regions that you own. So for example, Kansai, if you were there and you were harvesting, you would gain 3 victory points. If you were in Shikoku, you would gain 3 money. If you were in, let's come over here, Hokkaido, you would gain 2, this is a little complicated, we'll get into it later, you would gain 2 Ronin. Ronin are used in war, they're like reinforcements. So depending on where you are, when that occurs, you're going to be able to sort of reap the benefits of the region that you control. Now, I should say, everybody gets 1 money is the standard. And then the bonus, if you're the one playing it or your ally is the one playing it, is you get the super benefit of the region that you control. So the money or the victory points or the Ronin. Other than that, it's just 1 money per region that you control. And you control a region by having the only warriors there, or the most force there, or the only stronghold there, I believe are the 3 factors that go into that. And then the last one that I pulled here is Train. That is to purchase new cards from the season cards, sort of the marketplace, like I said. The only one that I didn't pull out here is Betray. Betray is this red guy. Betray does 2 things. It immediately lets you swap 2 of your models with 2 models from other factions on the board. So you can literally just like slip in your models where their models were, and their models just go back to their pool off on the side of the table. But also, if you are in an alignment, that alignment immediately breaks, and I believe you drop to the bottom of the honor track. Actually, you might drop to the bottom of the honor track just by playing it, I think. Because you're basically using spies to slip your guys into enemy territories out of the blue. The thing about that is it doesn't allow anybody else to take any actions. The Betray, I believe, is the only political mandate where only the person playing it actually gets to do anything. All of the other ones, you get to do it and everybody else gets to do a lesser version of it. Betray, it's just the person playing the card. So those are the political mandates. You pull 4, you choose 1, you play it, you put the other 3 secretly face down back on top of the stack, and you slide it to the person. Everybody, does the political mandate. You slide it to the person to your left. It's clockwise. They then pull the top 4 cards. So they know 3 of what you put back, and then they get 1 extra card. So when you move this deck off to the side, you can sort of factor in what you think the next player would want and pull that and use it so that they don't get it. Or at least they won't get the full benefit of having played it. Just because you know what 3 cards are going back on top, you know they're going to get those 3 plus 1 more. And that continues around the table for 3 players. When you get to this symbol here, that's actually the shrine symbol. That means that any shrine that currently has Shinto on it triggers. So when you play a Shinto, so when somebody plays the, When somebody plays the Recruit mandate, everybody gets to put 1 model onto the table. If that model being placed is a Shinto, you can, instead of putting it on a region, put it on a shrine. Any shrine, doesn't matter if it's already occupied or not. Then when you get to the shrine phase, if you have a Shinto on a shrine, you gain the benefit of what that shrine does. Like I said, all the shrines are different based off of the different kami cards that you put on them, which is randomized and pulled at the beginning of the game. Now, if there are two opposing Shinto, or more than two opposing Shinto on the same shrine, the honor track, whoever's highest in honor, determines who actually gets the benefit of that kami. Not everybody gets it, just the person with the highest honor. So you do tea ceremony, 3 political mandate phases, 1 shrine phase, 2 more political mandate phases. You just keep going around wherever you stopped. You just pick up 1 more shrine phase, 2 more political mandate phases, a 3rd shrine phase, and then you're into war. Once you get into war and sort of everything is settled out, you're going to look at your tracker over here on the side, 1 through 5, again, if you're in a 3-player game, and you're going to start with number 1. Say, for example, Shikoku was number 1. Actually, I don't know if you guys can even see Shikoku. Let's say Hokkaido, because I know you guys can see Hokkaido. Say Hokkaido was number 1. And say we had 2 opposing players there. Say I had a couple of Bushi, and let's say another player had 1 monster there, right? Say that wasn't mine, somebody else's. So there are opposing forces in Hokkaido. Hokkaido has come up on the war tracker. You go to war there. The way that war works is very interesting. It's very much backed by finances. Normally you would put up your screen. I'm going to lay mine down just so you guys can see what's going on. Like I said, you're going to have this tracker behind your clan sheet, your clan screen. This is the political mandate side that explains all the political mandates. This is the actual war side that helps you go through war and is in fact required to go through war. It's got 4 sections on it. It's got seppuku, take hostage, hire Ronin, and then Imperial Poets. In between hire Ronin and Imperial Poets is the actual battle outcome. So Imperial Poets actually occurs after the battle is resolved. Sorry for the weird cut. I noticed that for some reason my camera just cut out during the section of the video where I was talking about the seppuku action and how war bidding works, which is pretty much one of the most vital parts of the explanation of the game. So seppuku is pretty straightforward. You may kill all of your figures, may being the key word. If you do so, you gain 1 victory point and 1 honor for each figure that you kill. So each of your own men. That would include monsters that you have in your control as well. The reason it says may is because you may want to take that action only to prevent your opponent from taking that action. This is a key feature of how war works in this game. Basically, you have all of your coins at the beginning of combat, or the beginning of war. The amount of coin that you have is known to your opponent, and you see how much they have as well. Then you take all of that coin and bring it behind your screen. This is the sort of secretive part of combat. And you're going to place those coins, as many as you choose, all of them, none of them, any number in between, onto the 4 options on the war chart, or the little war card here. So you've got seppuku, take hostage, hire Ronin, and Imperial Poets. You could, just move a bunch of them around, make it look like you're bidding, and then not actually put any on your board. You can place them however you choose. The idea is that once you and your opponent are ready, you simultaneously drop your screens, and you can see where you and your opponent have bid your coins. If you've bid more for an action, say for example, I bid 3 on seppuku and they bid 2, only I get to take seppuku, and I may choose to not take it, but it still prevents them from taking it. So it's sort of a bidding, gambling type of system. So when you go down the line, any action can only be taken by either opponent. And so all of the actions are optional, other than Imperial Poets, which will always be taken because all 3 other actions say may. And that's because you might want to bid on them just to prevent your opponent from doing them. So anyways, yeah, seppuku is you may kill all of your figures, and that is to gain 1 victory point and 1 honor per figure that you kill. Then you've got take hostage. You may take 1 hostage. Take 1 victory from your opponent. So if you take a hostage, just the 1 you're allowed to, you actually move your opponent down 1 in victory and yourself up 1 in victory. Again, you might not want to do that. You might just not want your opponent to do that, and so you bid on that. Then you've got hire Ronin. Hire Ronin allows you to take your Ronin tokens, which I'm pretty sure I have on the board here somewhere. Yep. These are your Ronin tokens. These are sort of hired warriors, hired soldiers. And you might earn those throughout the season for doing different things. It allows you to take your Ronin tokens and put them into battle as if they were a model on the region that you're fighting. So again, if we're fighting over here in Hokkaido, I have 2 Bushi, my opponent has 1 monster, normally worth 1, so I'm winning. It basically allows me to take my however many Ronin I want to add in. Say I have these 3 Ronin that I've earned, right? And I want to put a couple over there just to guarantee, because I don't know what they're going to do. I would bid on higher Ronin. It allows me to add as many Ronin tokens as I want to my force. So say I plop down 2 over there. Now I've got a total force of 4 against his 1. Now, obviously I might not do that because it looks like I'm already winning unless I think they have some kind of a scheme that I'm trying to go against. So that's higher Ronin. Again, you might do it just to prevent them from doing it, or you might do it because you actually want to add Ronin. Then you've got your battle outcome. This is where you pause and you actually look at what there is for force over there, okay? Say he outbid me on seppuku, right? This guy just kills himself. He gains 1 victory point and 1 honor. This model leaves the table and goes to his pool, where it can be resummoned the next time he plays the, I forget what it is, the card that lets you place models, recruit. And I'm now left with this sort of built-up force that's going to do nothing. Then we've got take hostage. Say I bid on take hostage and I won. I bid higher than him, right? He probably didn't bid on anything else because he knew he was going to commit seppuku. So why do it? He just saved his money, right? And we'll get to why that's a reason to do something later. So his guy's out. I bid higher on take hostage, but there's nothing to take hostage, right? You go in order, left to right. So seppuku occurs, boom, that guy's gone. I bid for take hostage. It's wasted. That money's trash. I bid for higher Ronin. Those are in play. I actually wouldn't place those until just now when we determined that I won the bid, because he might have won the bid, so he places. So I place those. And I should say, going into combat, how many Ronin and how much coin you have available to start is public. Then you go behind the screen and everything becomes secret. But your opponent gets to know, if you're going in with like 50 coins and they have 5, they get to know that going into it. You don't just get to hide that you're wealthy, like throughout the course of the season by constantly playing your stuff behind your screen. You actually have to make it aware how much you have. And then when you go behind the screen, everything gets secret on what you're bidding on. So higher Ronin, I throw those guys over there because let's say I won that. Completely useless because there's no one to fight. I didn't need it. Then battle outcome, that's where we're at here. So I win. What I get to do is I actually take the war card for Hokkaido, which is this guy right here. It shows that I won Hokkaido. It's got a season 1 marker on it. I take that and I keep it next to my board for the rest of the game. That's worth 1 VP. If I had won Hokkaido in season 2 and there was a 2 not next to it, this would be worth 2 VP, and in season 3 it's worth 3 VP. So winning further in the game is worth more because presumably at that point people have accrued stronger, more effective forces, and it's harder to win at that point in the game. So it's worth more at the end of the game. Then finally, after battle outcome, the final phase, which you still have to bid on, is Imperial Poets. This is gain 1 victory for every figure killed. Not just every one of your figures killed. Every figure killed. Now, maybe I bid on this and I won it, but I didn't get to kill anything. I mean, technically 1 figure died, but I didn't get to wipe out a bunch of soldiers. So this is only worth 1 victory, so I would gain 1 victory. And that's the end of that battle. Now, you would move down, say that was, again, battle number 1, you would move down to battle number 2. Now, if either me or my opponent that were just in that fight are also involved in battles later down the war tracker, that's a reason to have not spent all of your money at the, in one of your earlier fights. Maybe you looked at it and you determined that it was a losing battle to begin with. You bid on seppuku. You only used a little bit because you're hoping your opponent doesn't try to counter bid so that you can't do it. And you reserve the rest of your money for later down the line because you've got other wars to fight elsewhere on the map. You need to conserve your finances. If you spread yourself too thin, you can't back all of your wars and you end up losing by default in all of them. Another thing I should mention is at the end of a war step, so like say we finished Hokkaido, the money that I bid as the winner goes to my opponent, and the money that my opponent bid goes into the common pile. So the money that my opponent bid basically gets forfeit, and the money that I bid goes as war reparations to the losing opponent. So I'm actually funding their battles further down the line, which is funny because I might have other battles against them further down the war tracker, and the money that I bid to win this one actually funds them in the next one. So they could then throw that back at me. So it's very well balanced out. There's a lot of give and take, like literally. So that's the way that the war phase works. You go down the war tracker until all fights have been fought. And then once you're done with that, it's sort of the wrap up of the season phase. Seasonal cleanup is you discard all coins and Ronin tokens. Like I said, everybody starts on a clean slate. Those all go back to the common pile. You return any Shinto that are at the shrines to your reserves, not onto the board into regions, but back to your off-board reserve pile so that they can be brought onto the board using the recruit political mandate later, either onto the board or back into the shrines. And then you reshuffle the political mandate cards. And that's so that obviously they're not in the same order as they were last time. After that, you cycle back to the beginning of the game where you're going to pull out the new season. You're going to clean up the old season cards, obviously. You're going to pull out the new season cards. You're going to lay them face out. Everybody's going to get a look at what those new abilities and options for monsters and things are. You're going to get everybody their seasonal income to start with. You're going to return any hostages that may have been taken during the previous war phases that basically pay you from the common pool 1 coin each for returning them, which you can only take 1 hostage per war. So even if you took 1 in every war that you were in and you were in all 5 wars, again, assuming a 3-player game, you're only going to get 5 coins off of that. It's not a huge deal. Second season and third season, you are going to have a tea party phase, so there might be some alignments forged there. You pull the new season 2 war cards, shuffle them, obviously, place them face up on the board, so there's a new order to war. Regions that went to war last season might not go to war this season, or they might happen much later or much sooner in the war tracker, so that's going to change things. And also place, obviously, the tracking markers adjacent to the regions so that you can follow that as you play. And that's that. When you get to the winter season, you're just going to add up where everybody is on the victory point tracker, as well as what you have for cards in front of you that you've purchased throughout the seasons that might have endgame effects on victory points. I don't believe coins convert into victory points in any way. Oh no, you know what? I take that back. I think coins are actually direct victory points at the end of the game. I'm going to check that for you guys right now, because I can't recall that. So yeah, the actual victory, the war cards, the war victories are worth 1, 2, and 3 depending on the season that you earned them in. Your victory points going around the edge of the board are obviously worth whatever they're worth. You get bonuses if you have province tokens, or war tokens from different provinces, because obviously if you just keep winning in the same province over and over, you're not really trying very hard, you're just building up in that one space. If you have 3 or 4 separate unique province tokens for war, you get 10 bonus VP. If you have 5 or 6, you get 20 bonus VP, and if you have 7 or 8, which 8 is it's every region, you get 30 bonus VP. So maybe, oh yeah, you know what? The reason that coins don't count is because seasonal cleanup occurs before end game counting, and seasonal cleanup involves throwing all your coins away. So that's why coins don't matter. But yeah, so VP from that, VP from the tracker, VP from war cards, and VP from any bonus abilities that you have in front of you. And at the end, whoever has the highest VP wins, and then I believe it falls onto the honor track after that. So you can actually win the whole game based off of an honor tiebreaker. So yeah, this is the game. I realize this has been a very long sort of walkthrough, but that's pretty much the entire game. There are some tidbits of minutia when you might come across 1 or 2 abilities that seem to clash and you can't quite understand which one takes precedent. The rulebook does a really good job of breaking all of those sort of complex combinations down into, what's what and what the actual answer should be. But other than that, like I said, even if you don't ever plan on playing the game, the models alone, on a cost per model ratio, makes it absolutely worth buying the game. But I highly recommend you do play the game. It works with 3 to 5 players out of the box, and with the expansions, I think you can actually play all the way up to 8 players or 7 players. The expansions add a ton of stuff, but I just don't have the time to get into those, maybe in another video. But yeah, the game is great. It's complex to the point where it's not boring, but it's easy enough to pick up, and it's unique enough with the sort of war financial bidding, or the financial way of buying your victory in war, and the sort of secret behind the screen bidding process, that it doesn't feel like every other tabletop world conqueror type game. It feels very unique. There's a few things that I didn't get into specifically with like movement, shipping lanes, and some of the other options, the specials of the political mandate cards, but there's nothing too complex beyond what I explained. That's pretty much the whole game, the way that it functions. The game itself runs very smoothly once everybody has a feel for it. I would say your first playthrough is probably going to take, let's say you do 4 people, your first playthrough is probably going to take somewhere around 2.5 hours to get set up, to get a feel for changing from one season to the next, to sort of like learn the season cards, because they do have unique abilities that you kind of need to read to understand, and until everybody has seen those cards enough times, everybody's going to pause at the beginning of every season and read what all the cards do so that they know what they want to buy throughout the season. But once you play your second or your third game, even with 4 or 5 players, you're going to get through the game in 1.5 hours to 2 hours. It's a speedy game, it's fun, it's unique, and it looks really great when you have all of these awesome models laid out on the table on this massive map. It's just really nice. I would absolutely recommend this game. For $100, it is well worth it. So yeah, Rising Sun gets a thumbs up from me. I hope you guys have liked this video. If you haven't yet, go down below, subscribe, set your notification bell to all so that you get pinged whenever I put up a new video. It's going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Right now I am tinkering with a new schedule or specifics to the schedule. I want to do game reviews on Monday. I want to do online or gaming-based programs, sort of things like MRPG and Aurora and Dungeon Fog and Incarnate. I want to do things like that on Wednesdays, and I want to do Let's Plays on Friday like I've been doing. Other than that, yeah, dislike, whatever you feel is appropriate. Comment down below. I'll try to get back to you. And I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.